Hi, I'm Rebecca Carner. So we're in the middle of a coronavirus, social distancing, new cultural protocol activity time right now. And one of the things that I had conceived of doing for my next series of videos was tuning towards the Four Agreements. The Four Agreements is a book written by Don Miguel Ruiz, who is a shaman from in the Toltec tradition. And the Four Agreements, in very short form, are: be impeccable with your word, don't take anything personally, don't make assumptions, and always do your best. And so in this first of four, I wanted to focus on be impeccable with your word. So I'm going to start as I always do, here in the Earth Star Chakra. And it's interesting because social distancing, for a lot of people, the focus is on sort of being removed from people. Being removed from your typical community, being removed from your typical daily environment of, say, a people-filled workplace and that sort of thing. All right, everybody just take a nice big deep breath. Man, there has been a lot up in the air. Everybody's lives are up in the air. Everybody's work is up in the air. There we go. But let's just drop in and be here now. And think about being impeccable with our words. My personal circumstances have arrived me at an incredibly bizarre state of existence for me, which is that I am at home right now without my children. And that doesn't typically happen. They are safe, they are with their father, and that is a wonderful thing. And I am happy that everybody is where they need to be and safe. But it's interesting because I, for one, have been talking less in a day than I typically do between work and family. And yet the importance of being impeccable with one's word is even more obvious to me, because that what I do say, I'm being able to really hear myself talk rather than just sort of being caught up in the moment and talking without really being super mindful of what all I'm saying. And I've thought a lot lately about people who are being homebound right now, who would normally not be at home even in any given 5-day week. So many people commute to other cities for work. People can't get on planes now, and so they're at home with their spouses, with their kids, with their roommates, with their extended families, what have you. And so we think, oh, everybody's hunkering down, except the sort of intimate spaces are becoming quite saturated. And the sort of daily change up that we get, like kids go off to school, mom and dad go off to work, that sort of thing, where you sort of get a break from one another, that's not happening on the daily. Okay, this feels really good. So it's not like you can say something that's a little bit sideways at the breakfast table, but then, oh, everybody goes to school, goes to work, goes to do their daily doo-dah day, And so the simmer gets to go down before we reconvene at the end of the day, and we get to revisit what we said in the morning or that sort of thing. It's like we're all here all day long, every day, and that's just not usual. And so be impeccable with your word, that agreement. They're agreements. I like the name of the book because it's an agreement that you can make with somebody else, the four agreements, but it's also agreements that you make with yourself, that you sort of agree, standards, if you will, ideals, ideas that you agree to hold yourself to. And being impeccable with one's word has this kind of baked in secondary agreement in it, which is that to be impeccable with one's word, one also has to then preliminarily be impeccable with your thought. Because if you catch yourself from saying a less than impeccable word, that means that you notice that your thought that that just preceded whatever it was you were going to say maybe wasn't awesome. Wow, the tone really opened up. Like the thought of just the mere suggestion of tidying up one's thoughts as a preamble to being impeccable with one's words really opened up this sun star energy point. There's a little bit of tension. I kind of get the feeling like if there's a virus going around, what's the point of being tidy with one's words? But it makes a huge difference. Not necessarily in combating a pathogen, but words permeate and fill in the atmosphere just like a gas or a vapor would. And if we are going to be homebound and or deeply limiting the arenas that we physically put ourselves in for the next little while, the words that we populate our immediate environment with just become incredibly, incredibly important. And also because the cast of characters in said environment isn't going to be changing a lot like it tends to do for most people. Some people live very quiet, homebound lives, but a lot of people don't. Again, take a nice big deep breath. I'm going to go ahead and switch up frequencies. I'm going to move to the 417. I feel like I need to lighten it because, again, to be impeccable with your word doesn't mean that you can't express your fear or your concerns, or you can't ask questions or discuss things that are difficult or uncomfortable. It's being mindful of what your words are. And are you sort of, if you think of words like seeds, are you planting weed seeds or are you planting flower seeds? Because at some point, the conditions that we are in, the global conditions, the conditions here in America, will shift. And sort of what we verbally fertilize our immediate environments with is going to be the groundwork, literally, that the next iteration, the next phase of whatever this is going to look like after COVID-19 passes in its most acute forms. The fertilizer, the seeds that we're planting now, this is what's going to populate our society going forward. And so being mindful, are we talking about our fear, or are we growing our fear by what we're saying? Are we looking for the best updated information and sharing it lovingly and consciously with others? Or are we spreading distress and rumor and insecurity and uncertainty with our words? It's hugely, hugely different. It's not that everything that you say has to be positive. It's that you are aware of what you are saying. There we go. And I'm just going to check in as to which chakra would like a little touch-up. You'd think, since we're talking about being impeccable with our word, that it might be the throat chakra, although that is not always the case. So I'm going to check in to see which energy center is really presenting itself as wanting a little bit of attention, in terms of how can we cultivate in ourselves the environment to be the most impeccable with our words that we possibly can, so as to populate our external environment the most beautifully with what we say. Okay, go figure. All right, so interestingly, the knees were really what presented, and in Biofield tuning, the knees hold the energy of moving forward, overcoming any obstacles that we may perceive. That's the right knee. The left knee is really about should we stay or should we go? Are we in the right place? And should we sort of cling to ideas, or can we think about things in a new way? Can we move in a new way? Where are we getting stuck? So between the right knee and the left knee, again, in this interim period of actually having to be quite still, uncommonly still, and uncommonly sort of tethered to a very few amount of specific physical locations, we're all looking forward to what's this going to look like after the fact? How are we going to move through this? What implications in terms of jobs, global economy, global health, disruptions in income, disruptions in education, disruptions and overwhelm in terms of global medical facilities and medical approaches, wellness in general. The whole landscape that we are going to walk on will be different moving forward. And so being impeccable with our words now, it's okay to say that you don't know. Don't make up things. This sort of conjecture and well, really what's dropping in is this whole idea of 24-hour news. While this is a current situation, and there are daily shifts in numbers and or news about the best places to get the help that you need or get the resources that you need. So looking to news for updates on that is a really good thing. But listening to a lot of hearsay or listening to a lot of rumors, listening to a lot of conjecture or hypotheses, if it's not going to help you right now, maybe just dial that down. And or at the very least, if you feel compelled, like you maybe want to watch that because it might wind up being true and it might be useful later, fine. Just don't repeat it until it does become true. And again, if you see or hear of someone who is conducting themselves in a way that doesn't suit you, just move away from them. You don't have to speak ugly. You don't have to be ugly. You don't even have to think or feel ugly towards them. Just think, that doesn't feel right for me. That doesn't feel like what I want to be doing during this time. I don't have to say anything ugly. I don't have to speak poorly about somebody. I can just realize they're moving through this uncertain time in the way that suits them, and that's not my jam. And that's fine. It doesn't have to be. All right. So as I drop this into the right knee, the other thing about being impeccable with one's word that's occurring to me is I've now seen 2 videos that were produced in Italy that have really had impact on me. One was the various forms of singing and or musical instrument playing that was recorded of people in their own homes but joining together as a collective through song and through music to connect in that way. And then just prior to starting filming this, I watched a video of that had subtitles, and it was messaging a bunch of different recorded video tidbits of messages of Italian people sort of giving kind of top tips, giving their best advice to Americans. And the overwhelming sentiment was, don't take this lightly, don't underestimate it like we did. Go ahead and do the most you can. Don't be lulled into a false sense of security because viral pandemics are a thing, and basically the Italians were saying we as Italians have been deeply impacted, and it's because we waited to take certain measures until we did, and they were just urging Americans not to wait as long as they did. And the tenderness and the compassion and the anonymous countryman to countryman wish that was extended sort of with no strings attached, just like we were adversely affected. We would, if our words can help you, let you not be as adversely affected as we were. May that be so. That's such a strong and powerful message. It was so beautiful. And even though the people seemed kind of happy and were adorable and kind of bright and cheery and kind of cute expressions on their faces, it made me kind of want to tear up a little bit because I just thought, these people, none of them have anything to gain. They're already stuck in their homes, but they're sending out this message of, this is what we think you ought to do from the lessons that we learned the hard way. And that's just, it's so touching. It's so beautiful. That whole idea of open source. I learned this. I'm not going to patent it. I'm not going to write a book and try and make millions and millions of dollars on it. This is time-sensitive material. I've learned this. I want to share it as quickly and pervasively as I possibly can. So here, it's free. It's here. Let me offer it. That is just such a powerful and beautiful transmission. All right, be impeccable with your words. It really is about transmissions. And we do create with our transmissions. And if you wind up getting sick, and if it winds up being a really bad thing for you, the other way that you can really be impeccable with your word is how you speak to yourself. And sometimes, I know I talk to myself aloud sometimes, but a lot of our inner dialogue isn't said with physical words, and we don't really use our mouth, but we certainly talk to ourselves. And the words that another person might not be able to hear have the same creative potential as the words that we speak aloud. And so however you speak to yourself, like, oh, I don't know if I should have gone to the grocery store, man, maybe I should have shut down my business a few days earlier, or what have you. Don't beat yourself up. You know what you know when you know it, and not a moment sooner. So just breathe, be mindful, be kind and compassionate to yourself, be kind and compassionate to others. And choose your transmissions knowingly and with consideration. And then however we move forward as individuals, as American nationals, as global citizens, however we move forward, the way is paved with the words and the transmissions that we speak today. So be impeccable with that. It can only help. And y'all, the worry, the thickness in the field, it's reasonable to be worried. I'm worried. I know my neighbors are worried. What is this going to look like? What is this going to mean? How are we going to recover? Who's going to lose their jobs? Who's going to graduate from school and be able to take their next steps in life, given what all this is looking like now? Man, we don't know, okay? We don't know right here today. And that's okay. It's okay. To be concerned is logical. Just don't let it drive you into the ground. Don't let it run you ragged. yeah, it's interesting. This, am I stuck? What do I do next? Should I stay? Should I go? The energy in this left knee, it's so interesting because so much of this happenstance, these circumstances right now are really forcing us to be present. And we can only know today, like, am I okay today? Do I have enough food and toilet paper and, whatever meds I was on that I'm on habitually or whatever? Do I have enough for today? That's as much as we can know. What tomorrow looks like, anybody's guess is as good as mine. But it's really being in the present and staying with that and being satisfied with that, and knowing that that truly is all we've got. This is a real exercise in that, and particularly at Americans, where we like to look at what is past so that we can accurately predict the future. Having only the present be what's known and have it unfolding uncertainly with every passing moment is not in our comfort zone. Whee! Man. Nothing like learning a new skill to make the future ever more expansive and ever more interesting. There we go. All right. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the field now. Thus ends the tuning on the knees for the first of our 4 agreements, which is be impeccable with your word. Wow, I don't know. That's interesting. It really lightened the field up. That's a big topic, and there is certainly a lot going on right now, but the field wrapped up and felt pretty light, so yay. Let me do the final wrapping. So this is our first of 4 in a series of the 4 agreements. Be impeccable with your word. I hope that this helped everybody in their home environments and their sort of housebound quarantine type situations to be mindful of what you say and be compassionate and loving to self and to others in what you say as we all stick together and quiet down through this. I will be doing these more quickly than once a week because I've got the time for it right now. I also am available to do distance sessions. Just like this works on the collective, it also works on individuals in private sessions through distance, just like cell phones work. Please visit RebeccaCarner.com if you'd like more information or to contact me for a private session. And really, be safe, limit your activities, be kind, be compassionate, be well. Until the next